This is what where even we Takaful companies, once there are other Takaful companies, we can synergize. I do not perceive emergence of other Takaful companies as a competitor. I perceive them as a good opportunity, because then together we can reach out to the masses, because individually we cannot. And there can be good synergy where we can take advantage of each other's capacities, each other's expertise, and that is how we would like to work positively together, rather than considering each other and as our competitors and going on loggerheads, as is being done by certain convention insurers. Below the line, of course, other than seminars, talk shows, we will also be making use of hoardings and leaflets. Bank ka takaful, I think it needs a little bit more elaboration. This again is a logical, you can say, aftermath of bank assurance, which was evolved in the 80s somewhere in France as well as simultaneously in Philippines. That was where banks and conventional insurance companies, they came together, and under one roof they tried to cross-sell each other's products, and ultimately they also offered bouquets where banks could sell insurance products and vice versa. Very soon the same concept, once Takaful developed, the same concept also was taken up by the Islamic banks, and I think Bank Al Jazeera is one of the pioneers in that. They have come up with very ideal Bank Ka Takaful products, particularly in life, but also in general Takaful. Even HSBC Amana, they have their Takaful arm worldwide, and they also have certain products which they have offered as a bouquet and also as a value addition to their depositors. And that is what we in Pakistan also will be synergizing, because we also, as I'll show you later, we are also going to have certain, we have already in fact dedicated Islamic banks, plus there are Islamic windows of conventional banks, because there is an emerging need for Islamic products, so we have to fulfill that need. And e-commerce again is an activity which brings the banks and the Takaful companies close together, the Islamic banks I'm talking of, where we can synergize and we can in fact have a practical manifestation where everything can be done under one roof, and very quickly the trader, the importer as well as the exporter, they all can get their insurances, their finances, letters of credit, everything taken care of just in one roof. The advantages of Bank Ka Takaful, some of them, of course, there can be a facilitation desk or equipment installed within an Islamic bank that will ensure fast turnaround period. That will be one-stop shop, and in fact this will be one step towards achieving the concept of an Islamic financial supermarket. The value-added services, the banks that they will provide would be extras at no extra cost to their depositors. Because of large numbers, because of the volumes, we would be able to give those terms and rates to those banks or through those banks to their depositors, which as individual depositors they may not merit. That would only be through those Islamic banks, because we will be benefited by the law of large numbers, and that benefit definitely we would like to pass on to the bank's depositors. And that is where and how a good ideal synergy will be created between Islamic banks and Takaful or Islamic insurance, and that is what we call Bank Ka Takaful. There are currently 4 dedicated Islamic banks already operating in Pakistan, having their number of branches. In fact, the number of branches is going up all the time. And in addition to that, there are other banks, including Emirates Global Islamic Bank, which is going to be operational very soon. These branches are not yet operational, but these will be also, I think, towards this year end. And in addition to that, there are 11 conventional banks who have opened up Islamic banking operations by way of Islamic banking division or Islamic banking windows. Reason being, and one of them of course is even Standard Chartered Bank, a foreign bank. They feel there is a market for that, the credibility has been created, so there is no reason why they should not go and why they should not be able to offer that very service that their clients require. And this is a very positive sign even for us Takaful companies. Re-Takaful, there is, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the issues. Of course, there are different types of, just like different types of reinsurances, there are different types of Re-Takaful. Proportional as well as non-proportional, we call it excess of loss. And in case Re-Takaful is not available for certain high valued risks, then we do have a provision. We can approach our Sharia Advisory Board and we can get Rukhsa to go to a conventional insurer, but that will be something of a last resort for us. There have been certain Re-Takaful companies that have been established worldwide, but there are still a handful of them, and of those only the 3 that I have shown in bold, they are really vibrant and they are operational. Others are more or less dormant, or else they are only restricted to their own respective regions or countries, whereas re-takaful or reinsurance, by the very concept, it has to achieve a geographical global spread of risk. So that geographical spread of risk is being achieved by Best Re, ASEAN Re and Takaful Re. But other good tidings is that Al Fajr Re Takaful has been formed just last month with a paid up capital of $173 million in Kuwait. And Tokyo Marine, that is a big insurance and reinsurance company in Japan. They are setting up, realizing the need for Re Takaful and the potential. They are going to set up their Re Takaful operations in Singapore. They have already formed a company, and that company will be operational in the year 2007. Then at Lloyd's, we all know about Lloyd's syndicates. One specific syndicate of Lloyd's, the Cree Church at Lloyd's, they have formed a Re Takaful syndicate along with Dubai Islamic Bank, and that Lloyd's syndicate, which will be a AA rated syndicate right from the outset, that will also be operational from next year on. So next year onwards, there will be better opportunities to synergize, to have more capacity of these Re Takaful. In addition to these, even certain top ranking Re Takaful companies like Swiss Re, Mitsui, Sumitomo, Hanover Re, which have been established over more than 200 years, they have also set up Re Takaful pools now just recently, because they felt there is a growing need and they did not want to lose business. Whereas these companies, there was a time when in the initial phases of Takaful, they used to look at it with disdain. Now these very companies, and that again further proves the viability and vitality of this Takaful system, that even these companies, Swiss-based Converium is just a recent addition, they also are forming Re Takaful pools to cater for the growing Re Takaful market. I have just put industry statistics of the 3 vibrant Re Takaful companies, but just as I have mentioned, there are others also coming up. Obviously, for a Re Takaful company, the paid up capital has to be very high. Only then the level of confidence and trust can be generated. Next. There are also very good Re Takaful prospects in Pakistan. In fact, this has been talked about, and this is being talked about even by the regulators, by heads of certain large corporate groups as well, that yes, because we are a land of 97% Muslims of 150 million, not only there is an enormous potential for Takaful, similarly there is an enormous potential for Re Takaful, because all these emerging Takaful companies, now we are looking outside Pakistan for our Re Takaful. If we can have a Re Takaful company here in Pakistan, obviously in the first instance, that company, provided it is run on professional lines, that will stand to benefit, and not only from us, but also because Pakistan is strategically located between the Central Asian republics, the Middle East, so we can also have a very good, that Re Takaful company can also synergize and have a good spread from Middle East, and that can be a very good source of invisible income for that Re Takaful company. Professional expertise for reinsurance is available, and Re Takaful is just one more step towards reinsurance. Even I have learned over the last 1.5 years the difference between reinsurance and Re Takaful, and it's not that difficult or hard to grasp. The fundamental elements are there. You just have to obviously induct them into Takaful concept, and then you have Re Takaful. So that professional expertise is there. Even PRCL, Pakistan Reinsurance, conventional Pakistan Reinsurance Corporation or Company Limited, they have been thinking for the last 1 year or so of forming a Re Takaful pool. Maybe with the formation of more and more Takaful companies, that need will be felt, because otherwise the entire Re Takaful premium will go outside Pakistan. Whereas I perceive personally, if we can have a professionally managed and run Re Takaful company now in Pakistan, this will be a big source of invisible income of foreign exchange from outside into Pakistan. Re Takaful issues, of course, there are only a few globally active companies. The capacity constraint will still be there, because still certain larger risks will have to go into the bigger global market. There will be a large initial paid up capital required, so there will be hardly 1 or 2 interested groups. They also will need to form consortiums to come up with Re Takaful arrangements, and we shall definitely need to have strong and committed sponsors. There has been in the recent years, there was one Re Takaful company, Mithaq Re, that was set up with 300 million US dollars paid up capital in Bahrain, but that company could not even start their operations. Reason being that the sponsors, they were not committed, and ultimately it worked down. So we have to learn a lesson from that, and if we do form a ReThaqaful company, we have to do our homework, and first and foremost we need to be totally committed, because ReThaqaful is even a longer term business than a conventional Thaqaful or insurance business. And of course, until such time that we have enough ReThaqaful capacity formed within the Islamic world, we will need to rely on retrocession. Retrocession is reinsurance of reinsurance. That is one step further off. So that relies, because London and USA, they are the large reinsurance markets. Almost 40% of the world retrocession goes into those markets, particularly for large aviation risks and energy risks, even from Pakistan. So maybe till such time that we have got enough expertise and enough capacity, we will still need to some extent to rely on that retrocession. Then, as there are different models in case of conventional insurance, there are also different models for ReThaqaful depending on the place of domicile of the ReThaqaful companies. We will have to reckon with that. Hopefully in due course there will be Sharia scholars who would be able to reconcile these different models, because there is always room for improvement. There has been refinement, and there is no reason why there won't be any further refinement even within those models. Another way forward for ReThaqaful, once, of course, that is assuming once the Thaqaful concept and the Thaqaful companies are on sound footing in Pakistan, IPOs can be launched, because of course a ReThaqaful company will need a large paid up capital. Then, as I mentioned earlier, initially it could be in the form of retrocession pools, which eventually may emanate into a separate ReThaqaful company. Securitization is relatively a new phenomena even for reinsurance, but in the New York Stock Exchange, in a limited manner, some catastrophe excess bonds, that is in context with reinsurance, they are already being floated, and securitization of reinsurance is more or less a familiar word. Same securitization we can also make use of in case of our ReThaqaful operations. ART is alternate risk transfer mechanism. Lot of work has been done on this alternate risk transfer. We similarly need to do work at our end to have similar avenues open to us for our ReThaqaful, and definitely such avenues are there in the form of sukuk bonds, which can be launched relatively with ease within the Islamic world as well as elsewhere. And of course, same time we need to collaborate with other Thaqaful groups. There is already an Asian Thaqaful group that has been formed, which is an association of all the Asian Thaqaful companies. In a similar way, my own personal ambition and my dream would be one day we should have a forum similar to that at Lloyd's, where we can have syndicates of representing different Thaqaful companies all over the world, and risks can be pooled into that in a similar syndicate like Lloyd's, where there can be a very good geographical spread, and all the Thaqaful companies will be benefited under one roof. And I think that dream can come to fruition very soon, inshallah. The legal framework for Thaqaful is in the form of Thaqaful rules that were framed in September last year, and of course under the Insurance Ordinance 2000. So we do have a legal framework which is there as compared to many other parts of the world where they do not have even a legal framework as such. Next. Within our own legal framework, that is, I am talking of Thaqaful rules, composite Thaqaful companies, that is one company doing life as well as general Thaqaful both, they are not allowed. But for that matter, even composite insurance companies are not allowed in Pakistan, whereas elsewhere in the world, particularly in case of Thaqaful, they do allow life as well as family Thaqaful. Then window products and Thaqaful operations by conventional insurers, they are not allowed within the Thaqaful rules. Thaqaful operational model has been clearly defined, and that will ensure that there will be a uniformity amongst all the Thaqaful companies in Pakistan, so that there will be no complaint that each company is forming using a separate model as such. Then of course there is a provision that we have a policyholders, we have a participants Thaqaful fund distinct from shareholders fund. These two funds have to be kept separate, their accounting has to be separate, even their reportings, as I mentioned earlier, has to be separate. Investments also, according to the Thaqaful rules, have to be in Sharia compliant instruments, and as I said, those parameters are well defined. ReThaqaful, of course, as long as ReThaqaful is available, even if we want we cannot go to conventional reinsurance. There is a requirement for Sharia compliance audit, as I just mentioned earlier, and eventually within, as provided for in the Takaful rules, there will be a central Sharia board. That board, I think, will be formed once there are sufficient number of Takaful companies in Pakistan to justify formation of one centralized Sharia board. Takaful windows is one of the aspects which has been, of course, cropping up now and again, despite the fact that rules that were framed just 1 year ago, they have specifically forbidden Takaful windows. The background being mostly that people do use the example of banks, that when banks have been allowed to operate Islamic windows, why not a conventional insurance being allowed to have Takaful windows as well. Example can be drawn from the Malaysian market, because Malaysia, as we all know, is the market leader for Islamic banking as well as for Takaful, because for Takaful they have 46% of the worldwide Takaful premium at the moment. They really are market leaders, having 9 leading Takaful companies over there. Even in Malaysia, their regulators, when they came over to Pakistan, they very categorically said, way back in 1984-85, when we allowed Islamic banking within conventional banks, we made a mistake. We realized that mistake 15 years down the line, and now we have already issued instructions that all those Islamic windows be converted into separate subsidiary Islamic banks. But even they say that when we did allow Islamic conventional banks to have Islamic banking windows, we never allowed Takaful windows within the conventional insurers. Reason being that there is a clear conflict of concept. Conventional insurance, by its very definition, it is a risk transfer mechanism, whereas Takaful, it is risk sharing. So the two different concepts cannot be blended together within the ambit of one single company. And in any case, whereas in case of banks, you do require a large paid up capital, something around 6 billion rupees now in Pakistan. But in case of forming a new company, a Takaful company, you require only 80 million rupees for a general Takaful company and 150 million for a life Takaful. That amount is so small, any conventional insurance company, if it wants to conduct Takaful operations, they can easily form a separate Takaful subsidiary company rather than amalgamating the two, because if they do that, of course, not only a conflict of concept, it will also be against the Islamic injunction, وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, and mix not the right with the wrong, and hide not the truth when you know it. This is what we firmly believe, that we cannot compromise on this principle. If we feel, or rather not, it is not us, it is the Sharia scholars all over the world who have ordained that one system is Sharia compliant, the other is not. It is not wise to mix the two, because then we would be confusing the general public, the very public for whom we want to cater and want to give to them their product. There is no dearth, one other reason being forwarded by conventional insurers, that there is dearth of professionals, insurance professionals, and therefore to give a good head start, we must allow the conventional insurers to also offer Takaful products. Well, that is just a myth, because there are enough qualified and competent insurance professionals within the Pakistan insurance industry. We only need to groom them and to convert them into Takaful professionals, and that will not take that long. In fact, many good Pakistani young insurance professionals, they are working at the moment in the Middle East. They are getting good exposure because they did not have good career progression here in Pakistan. And this is similar to what happened in case of Islamic banks about 15 years ago. Ultimately, when new opportunities arose within Pakistan, those very professionals, Pakistanis who were working outside Pakistan, they came back from the Middle East, even from Europe, and now they are forming the core teams of those new banks as well as Islamic banks. Similar things will happen once we provide new avenues by setting up new Takaful companies. There are even professionals, Takaful professionals and Islamic insurance professionals working in the Middle East who are Pakistanis. They will come up from Pakistan. So there is no shortage. In fact, we should provide them with such an opportunity to come up to us. Regulatory issues, luckily in Pakistan at least, they are conducive to the formation of more and new Takaful companies, and that is why new Takaful companies are being formed. There is an added transparency, as I have just mentioned, and the foreign investment, that again is an important aspect. Last year when Takaful rules were being framed and there was a strong lobby advocating Takaful windows within conventional insurance, the foreign investors, those who were serious Takaful companies and other investors who wanted to invest to form joint venture Takaful companies in Pakistan, they obtained an assurance from the government that they will not allow conventional insurance companies to also proliferate and open up their Takaful windows. And it was based on that understanding that they have come up, and they are, in fact, even now, they are investing and they are trying to form Takaful companies. This will be a big setback to these foreign investors if we go back to what we have already promulgated just a year ago in the Takaful rules. As I said, there are enormous Takaful prospects in Pakistan. We are a land of 150 million people, 97% are Muslims. Compared to that, in Malaysia, they have only 26 million people and only 55% of those are Muslims. They have yet almost 9 leading Takaful companies, and those Takaful companies are now even expanding outside Malaysia into Indonesia, even in Pakistan. So there is no reason, once this concept takes firmer roots in Pakistan, there is no reason why this business, Takaful business, even as a viable commercial venture, it would not flourish. The demand for insurance obviously is already increasing. We are already aware of car ijara and also musharaka based systems, and personal lines business, because that is what creates the maximum awareness even of conventional insurance. So that will also help us out in creating awareness, and the prospects are there. And as I said earlier, Islamic banking already is on sound footing, and Islamic banks do require Takaful as a logical, seamless end to their Islamic solution. Next. Last but not the least, just a few words about my own company, Takaful Pakistan Limited. We are a joint venture consortium of House Building Finance Corporation, Emirates Investment Group, as well as Al Buhaira Group, and certain other interested institutions also are at the moment negotiating, and they will also be joining us very soon. Inshallah, we hope to commence our operations as soon as license is granted to us, soon after Eid. And we are starting off with, we shall be starting off, in fact, with large initial paid up capital of rupees 300 million. And the company, I assure you, gentlemen, is managed by dedicated professionals who are really committed to the cause. That is one of our criteria for hiring people. Our Takaful arrangements are not just with one Takaful company, they are with a group consortium of 5 Takaful companies. And our Sharia board comprises of not 3 Sharia scholars, but we have 4. Our Sharia board chairman is Dr. Mahmood Ahmed Ghazi, vice chairman Professor Dr. Anis Ahmed Saab. They are all well-known figures. We also have a representative of Justice Taqi Usmani, Mufti Muhibul Haq, and also Mufti Khalil Azmi. So all these 4 eminent scholars, they form our Sharia supervisory board. They are there to guide us at every step to ensure that all our aspects are really Sharia compliant. We intend to be the trendsetters in client servicing, because that is where we think we can make our mark felt. Because everything, unless we are able to match our words with our deeds, obviously that will not make any difference in the general perception. And that is a big challenge for us. Inshallah, we'll try to come up to that challenge. We are already setting up our own benchmarks, our own procedural guidelines, and we will do obviously prudent underwriting to ensure that the participants' Waqf fund is benefited. To conclude, we have just talked in this session starting from the introduction and the evolution of Takaful through the ages to its emergence in the present time. I mentioned about, of course, briefly about Takaful products to cover all the insurance needs, Takaful contributions that are competitive, the unique benefit of surplus sharing, then of course the niche market as we perceive it to be of Banca Takaful, because all the emerging Islamic banks, they do require Islamic insurances. And of course at the end I have just briefly told you about my own company, Takaful Pakistan. I hope this does bring home the point that Takaful is a viable Sharia compliant alternative, and one day inshallah in Pakistan all insurances will be done the Takaful way, which is an equitable way. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Jamil. Here we take a break for 20 minutes for Asar prayer, and after the break we'll have a question answer session and of course closing remarks by the session chairman and memento distribution and of course iftar and dinner. So please come back after 20 minutes. Thank you. You can request for the mic.
السلام علیکم جی. کپتان صاحب سیدھا سا سوال ہے ایک بڑا تھا.
5 لاکھ کی گاڑی پہ سے جسٹ فار سمپلسٹی اگر 1% کا بھی ریٹ ہو تو کتنا 5,000 روپیہ بن جاتے ہیں. ایزیوم کریں کہ آپ نے 5,000 روپیہ, دس از جسٹ فار دا ایزمپشن سیک, ورنہ آج کل 1% میں کوئی گاڑی انشور کرتا نہیں ہے. خیر, اگر 5,000 روپیہ آپ نے کنٹریبیوشن دیا بائی وے آف تکافل, اس 5,000 میں سے سب سے پہلے جب وکالہ اس میں فنڈ میں وہ جائے گا پیسہ آپ کا, سب سے پہلے جو وکالہ فی ہے وہ اس میں سے منہا کر دی جائے گی. وکالہ فی وڈ بی اینی ویئر اراؤنڈ سے 30%, 35, 40% تک بھی ہو سکتی ہے. اسے باہر تو زیادہ بھی ہے, بٹ پاکستان میں میرے خیال میں اسی تناظر میں ہوگی 35, 37%. ایزیوم کیجئے کہ 30% جو ہے وکالہ فی ہے 5,000 کی, تو 1,500 روپیہ وکالہ فی میں چلا گیا. ٹھیک, 3,500 رہ گیا ابھی آپ کا. اس 3,500 روپوں کو تکافل آپریٹر انویسٹ بھی کرے گا آپ کے بہاف پر ان دیٹ فنڈ. سال کے آخر تک اس 3,500 روپے کے انویسٹمنٹ کی وجہ سے ممکن ہے 1,000 روپیہ مزید آ جائے اس فنڈ میں. میں ذرا ایگزیجریٹ کر رہا ہوں فگرس کو, بٹ جسٹ ٹو کلیریفائی دس تھنگ. اس 1,000 کا 25% وہ مضارب شیئر کاٹ لے گا. 750 روپیہ آپ کا آپ کے فنڈ میں, ابھی آپ کو نہیں ملا ہوگا وہ پیسہ, وہ واپس اس میں فنڈ میں چلا جائے گا, پارٹیسپینٹس تکافل فنڈ میں. تو 3,500 پلس 750, 4,250 روپیہ یہ ہو گیا. اس 4,250 میں سے ری تکافل کاسٹ پے کرے گا تکافل آپریٹر فنڈ کے بہاف پہ. ایزیوم کر لیجئے کہ 1,250 روپیہ ری تکافل کاسٹ چلی گئی, 3,000 روپیہ رہ گیا. 3,000 روپے میں سے کچھ تو تکافل آپریٹر فیوچر اس کے لیے ریزروز کریٹ کرے گا, فیوچر لاسز کے ایزمپشن اس کے لیے اینٹیسپیشن میں. کچھ اماؤنٹ جو کرنٹ ایئر کے کلیمز ہوں گے, ممکن ہے آپ کا کلیم نہیں ہو لیکن کسی اور کا کلیم تو آیا, وہ بھی تو اسی فنڈ میں سے جائے گا. 3,000 میں سے ایزیوم کر لیجئے کہ 1,500 روپیہ کلیمز اور فیوچر ریزروز کے لیے مائنس ہو گیا. جو باقی یہ 1,500 روپیہ بچ گیا, یہ سال کے آخر میں آپ کو واپس مل جائے گا. دس ول بی یور شیئر آف دا سرپلس. یہ میکینزم.
سب سے پہلی بات تو یہ کہ یہ پیسے میرے نہیں ہیں. جب میں ڈونیٹ کسی وقت کو پیسہ کر دیتا ہوں, دین آئی لوز دی ٹائٹل ان دی پراپرٹی سنس اٹ از بین ٹرانسفرڈ ٹو دا وقت. پارٹ 1. Secondly, the question is whether the members of the Sharia Advisory Board will be the employee of the takaful or not. And if they are, won't they be losing their independence per se while giving a rukhsa maybe for allowing you to invest or to retakaful your money in an insurance company? And thirdly, even if you get a rukhsa, you won't eat food on a poisonous plate, because that is basically a haram business apparently, insurance, and you won't eat, or you may not like to eat food on a poisonous plate. Even, and thirdly, even if you write suwar as halal, it won't become halal. Your comments, please.
Right. Thank you. Your first comment was that when you are paying a donation in the Waqf fund, you are not entitled to get anything back. I think I did make it clear that your donation basically is in the form of tabarru. Tabarru is a kind of conditional donation. Conditional in the sense that if any misfortune befalls the person who is making that donation, not only his own amount but even amount of the other participants will also contribute to make good that loss. And this basis of Waqf has been widely recognized and accepted. There is even Waqf fil Aulad, a certain set of people, they do benefit. When you become a member of that Waqf, you become a beneficiary also by virtue of being a member. Whenever you claim anything, it is not paid to you as your claim, it is paid to you as your benefit. And that is what our Takaful policy clearly enunciates, and that is what makes it different from other conventional insurance policies. Ji.
And the second one is with the public at large. There is no third work, and I have at least not studied any third work as working for a specific person. It is not true. There can be a work for the public at large, and it is for the alal maulad. That is my if I want to make a work for my successor, I can make a work. It is permitted under the Islamic jurisprudence, and hence I can make it. I cannot interpret that there can be a third work for a specific set of people. I really don't know.
Well, to be very frank, of course, I am not a Sharia scholar. I am not competent enough to comment further on that, except that this is what my Sharia scholars, they have told me that this kind of waqf, of course, it is not a waqf for the public at large. It is a waqf for a specific purpose and for a specific set of people who become its members. And as such, I of course tend to rely on our Sharia scholars when they have declared that this way of tabarru, it can also go to the benefit of the participants who are members of this waqf. I tend to believe in what they are saying, but as I said, so I am not competent in Islamic jurisprudence as such. I cannot be that specific whether or not there could be a third kind of waqf, or to which of the two categories that of waqf that you have enunciated does this particular waqf belong. Apparently it belongs to the same category as waqf fil aulad, because it is not a waqf for the general public. Your second question was about the Sharia advisory or rather Sharia supervisory board. They are not employees of the company. Yes, they are recipient of certain amount of remuneration for the services rendered, for the time that they spend, for the Sharia board meetings that they do attend. And that, of course, amount can be reviewed and revised from time to time. It is approved by the board of directors of the Takaful company, the shareholders. Well, tell me one thing, if does a judge who is appointed by the government and he is on the payroll of the government, does he not pass many times verdicts against the government? Does he lose his independence as judge? Those Sharia scholars, they are obviously they are selected, chosen as members of high esteem, of impeccable integrity. And this is the yardstick of their being on the Sharia board of any company. A person of impeccable integrity obviously does not mean that you don't pay him anything at all. When he is spending his time, he is spending his money, he is coming over to say Karachi to attend Sharia board meetings, obviously it would be fair and equitable, and this is what we are here as a Takaful company. We have to be fair and equitable to our participants, we have to be fair and equitable to our own employees, and we also have to be fair and equitable to those who are contributing, who are making us and guiding us to success. And our Sharia board members, we have to pay them equitably, but not as salary, but as compensation or remuneration for the services and for the specific services that they render. And I can assure you, sir, that those Sharia scholars, their integrity obviously is not jeopardized or it is not compromised by doing so. Regarding your third question, can you please come back on that again? Yes, about re-takaful. Okay.
Yeah.
As I told you, it would only be as a matter of last resort if we do not get re-takaful support. Only then we will first have to approach our Sharia advisory board for ruksa. Not only that, we will also have to then approach our regulators, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, who very soon are going to have their own centralized Sharia board. Only when we are able to satisfy all these entities, then only we can go to a specific conventional insurer when there is no worldwide re-takaful capacity. Again, a question does arise there is a prospective participant. He has a large energy risk. He wants to insure it in a takaful company in a Sharia compliant manner. Should I just refuse his genuine need because I cannot arrange reinsurance for him? Or should I entertain him and then should I try to my level best to first of all arrange re-takaful, which means obviously I will fulfill all the slots of re-takaful first, and whatever remains, not the entire business that I'll cede to a conventional insurer, only that which remains, which is still uninsured because of capacity constraint, that I'll go to a re-takaful operator. And again, even if that small element, as you say, is poisonous, probably that is the very reason that at the end of the policy period, whatever surplus remains, the Sharia Advisory Board has ordained that part of that surplus must go to charity. Because time and again there may be certain such inevitable, I would say, circumstances where one has to obviously compromise certain values. Maybe they are permitted, when they are permitted by Sharia scholars, obviously I cannot take their place to take my own decision. If they have permitted those, जिस तरह कहते हैं कराहत की हालत में कुछ चीज़ें जायज़ हैं, if it is that to purify that poison, there is another mechanism that we have to donate an X amount to charity also out of that fund. Would you also?
I'll just add a few comments to what Captain Saab has already covered quite well. With regard to Sharia board as employees or being remunerated, my own feeling is like, obviously like we have these auditors who actually audit all sorts of companies, and naturally remuneration is paid to those auditors. It's more or less a similar situation where it's not exactly the same thing, but I'm sorry? Yeah.
So the company is not hiring them. It is basically the shareholders. They want to get accounts audited.
Right.
So if the company goes paying them, but auditor is representing the shareholder.
Right, but isn't there a compromise of sorts where we actually have seen in practice? Why did all this corporate governance issues come in, where we said, okay, audit firms cannot do consulting business and things like that? They all came in just because of these remuneration issues where certain lines of business were cross-subsidized by others. In terms of Sharia scholars, what I've seen, at least in practice in the Middle East and in Pakistan, is like Sharia scholars have a very, very high level of commitment as far as these things are concerned. What actually tends to happen, and that where actually compromise seems to happen, is where managements of companies actually provide false information to Sharia scholars, giving them a particular picture of a certain scenario, and then when the Sharia board actually gives a view based on the information provided to them, it actually somehow seems that the Sharia board has actually compromised. And that I have actually seen in practice, where professional management of companies, of takaful companies, have misguided Sharia scholars. And we cannot actually expect that the Sharia scholars would be technically very sound people. They obviously know the Sharia principles, they understand finance, but not to the same level as some of the professionals do understand. And it's really our duty to actually lay out things up front to them and say, this is how things are. Do you think this is Sharia compliant or not? If we actually misguide them, it's extremely easy. And I've seen people actually take Sharia scholars through a certain route and get certain approvals. There's a tendency of that happening. And that, I think, as Muslims, we need to be careful ourselves whether we want an endorsement from a Sharia scholar or we looking for real solutions from Sharia scholars. Second, on the re-takaful side, there's been obviously discussion on re-takaful and like lots of conferences on takaful which go on around the world. And this is one of the biggest issues. When takaful companies actually started, especially Malaysia and then especially the Middle East, obviously there was no capacity at all. So it was basically a chicken and egg situation where you say, okay, if there are no re-takaful companies, then takaful cannot start. So it's interlinked basically. If the takaful business is not there, then re-takaful, why would one set up a re-takaful company? Re-takaful company will only set up if there is a real need for re-takaful, which means there are takaful companies who are willing to come to them. We have been talking to, like last about 3-4 years have been involved in takaful. We actually talked to a number of conventional reinsurers. It's a project that, not that I want to, was working on about 2.5 years back, and a Middle Eastern client on life takaful. And they basically, it was new, one of the world's largest takaful companies, that is largest capitalized, more than 100 million of capital. Their need was to, okay, find reinsurance or re-takaful, whatever. Now we could have actually, we were consultants, and we could have taken the shortcut route and say, okay, re-takaful is not available, so let's go with reinsurance. And we just got proposals from the 3-4 very large reinsurance companies, and actually could have just done a comparison and submitted that. Instead, we took the route of actually writing to those reinsurance companies, trying to convince them to offer re-takaful solutions, and made it a condition that the management of the company is only interested in re-takaful. And alhamdulillah, it's not trying to this thing about it, but like for instance, Swiss Re actually came with a re-takaful fund. Why did they come up with a re-takaful fund? Because from the client side, there was a pressure to actually create one, otherwise they were not into business. And those kind of, if you look at takaful companies all around the world, the tendency to actually jump onto reinsurance is very large. I've seen takaful companies in the Middle East where the retention is 0%. Can you imagine that? It's a fronting document, a takaful document, and the risk they are retaining with even like $25–30 million of capital, the risk they are retaining is zero, practically passing on every bit of risk to a reinsurance company. We are now moving from there to a regime where people have started taking 10, 15, 20% of risks on their based on their capital, and then actually going to re-takaful to a certain extent, and then going to reinsurance. So there are basically layers being created. And inshallah, I think as you saw from the Captain Saab's slide, the number of conventional companies now coming into re-takaful, setting up these things, because the pressure is now mounting to set up something. Previously, the pressure wasn't there. It was just, okay, if reinsurance is there, we can live with it because Sharia scholar has allowed it. So that doctrine of necessity was being misused primarily. And hopefully, inshallah, over the years, we should come out and say, okay, because re-takaful is now available, one has to explore that first before going to reinsurance. In fact, just elaborating further on that, with SECP, the Securities and Exchange Commission, if you look at the takaful rules, we have tried to define it in a way where we are saying, you have to prove to SECP that you actually searched for re-takaful, and re-takaful was available to a certain capacity. You went with re-takaful till that limit, and then you went to reinsurance beyond that limit, provided your Sharia board approves that. So that's the framework that we are trying to evolve.
My question is, as we have discussing about takaful models, why in Pakistan we are following al-Wakala model? Even we have got Mudarba and we have got cooperative. What it seems to me, when I was studying it, that al-Wakala model, if we talk about in al-Wakala model, so the insurance company get its fees, and even it is working for the person, but they have taken their fees. But if we talk about Mudarba, the company share its profits and loss with the person, with the individual who came for the insurance. So what do you perceive that why in Pakistan we are focused towards al-Wakala model?
I would like to give Rahim Saab to elaborate.
In terms of the various models, I think one of the issues that Captain Saab covered was obviously like different Sharia scholars have given different opinions on various models. I think in Pakistan we've chosen to go with the Wakala model, and with this added component of Waqf, which is not very different. It's basically a Wakala model. If you look at the Mudarba model, what it does, it basically says, what is a Mudarba? Let's look at it that way. If you are an investor, you have 100 rupees. I invest it on your behalf, I am the Mudarib, right? And if the 100 becomes 105, we share in that 5, right? So maybe if it's a 50-50 ratio, then 2.5, so your capital becomes 102.5. I get rewarded 2.5 for my efforts in actually managing that fund. That's the basic Mudarba concept, right? Now if you look at insurance or takaful, there's no concept of profit. There's a surplus which actually emerges from a company. So if you pay a premium of contribution of 100, obviously there'll be some claims, reinsurance costs and so on. So you're, after paying your, say 70 is your claims, so you'll be left with a surplus of 30. That's 30 is a surplus, which is like the balance of contributions minus claims. It's not a profit, if you look, right? So Mudarba concept can only apply where you're talking about investments and making a profit over and above your principal. So on that ground, this is one of the basic arguments that Sharia scholars in the Middle East have said Mudarba model is not applicable as far as risk management is concerned. If you're talking about investment management, certainly no issue with that. And to manage the takaful funds, you obviously can apply the Mudarba principles. Like Captain Sahab said, 25-75 is the ratio for sharing in the investment profits. So you can share in the investment profits, but as far as the underwriting, the risk management is concerned, Mudarba model actually doesn't apply, and that's why Wakala model was chosen, and it was prescribed in the takaful rules primarily because to avoid confusion where various companies, for instance, at the moment we have takaful players interested from Malaysia, from Middle East and so on. I think if we start allowing all the models, then the general public would get confused as it is, and perhaps we will be debating the models more than the concept of takaful itself.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Waqas. Basically, I have 4 questions. Is the company, Takaful Pakistan Limited, governed by Company Ordinance 1984? Number 1. Is surplus funds zakat deductible? Number 3, you had mentioned the products offered to the Islamic banks. Is there an alternative credit cards? And number 4, regarding the transparency, how much visibility is there? Who is allowed to visit the audit reports, Sharia audit reports? Who are allowed?
I think any one question of your choice, because we are running short of time.
Answer some, and then Abdul Rahim Sahab can take the rest. As regards my company, Takaful Pakistan, yes, it has been incorporated under the company's ordinance 1984. Secondly, regarding surplus, whether or not zakat is deductible on that surplus, I can talk again of my company. We are currently in the process of getting our Waqf deed registered. Once it has been duly registered, then I think there is a certain set of rules and a criteria to be met. If it meets that criteria, it will get that exemption from zakat, otherwise not. Regarding credit card alternative, that is something for the Islamic banks to look at. If they come up with a credit card alternative, we will be there to back them up with our insurances, just in the same way as credit card insurances are offered to other conventional banks. Your 4th question regarding transparency, we obviously will try. Of course, this is an era when everything is on the internet, even the company's accounts, everything, it is accessible. Even without saying so, there is already a transparency, and I do envisage that in due course we will also have our accounts, everything available to anyone, for that matter, not just to the participants but to anyone on the internet. That I think should impart the required transparency.
Okay, thank you, Captain Jamil, for the questions. And now, again, I would like to introduce the session chairman of our program, Abdul Rahim Abdul Wahab. He is Fellow of Society of Actuaries, USA. He is working as the Executive Director and heading the Actuarial Services Division of Siddharth Haider Murshid Associates. On his credit, he is having overall 19 years of work experience in the field of insurance-related actuarial work as well as insurance system development. Consulting actuary for design and valuation of retirement and other employee benefit plans as per IS 19 for over 350 such schemes in and outside of Pakistan, working for a number of takaful operators in the Middle East and in Pakistan related to business plan, product design, sales force, compensation models, products pricing, actuarial valuation of portfolio, etc. As a member of the committee set up by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan and the task force established to finalize the takaful rules and make recommendations by the government of Pakistan, presented number of papers at international and local conferences in UK, India, Pakistan, Middle East, Nigeria, etc., and related to takaful business models, actuarial and Sharia related issues for takaful products. With these words, gentlemen and ladies, I would like to invite Mr. Abdul Rahim Abdul Wahab for the concluding remarks about today's program.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Just last year when Ramzan, we had this session here, perhaps like this hall was fully packed. So I'm not too sure whether people have lost interest in takaful or something else has gone wrong. Last year we just had the rules promulgated by the SCCP, September of last year. And since last 1 year, there's been only one takaful operator which has started operations. the good news is obviously there are about 5 or 6 takaful operators who actually, about 4 are incorporated already, and 2 are actually in the preparation stage of filing papers. So hopefully we do see an industry evolving as far as takaful is concerned, and hopefully at some time competing with the conventional insurance companies, which are obviously quite large and dominate the market almost altogether. The ICAP circular actually had a term which says conventional difference in conventional insurance. That's what the takaful operators would want to make, unconventional difference in conventional insurance. And I believe that that is only possible if consumers, all of us as consumers, actually want takaful to be promoted, and we are really interested in actually buying takaful products. The reason for that is quite clear. If you look at the way insurance industry operates at the moment, there are lots of malpractices within the insurance industry. And a lot of it actually is because of us as consumers. We want to maximize the benefit from insurance when it comes to personal losses or losses related to our own entities. You can very clearly see when you buy an insurance contract, for instance, you buy a motor insurance policy, and companies would try and have claims settled which are, strictly speaking, not payable at all. And that tends to happen with larger customers. So where do we stand when we say, okay, we want a takaful product? And the very basic principle of takaful is it's mutual sharing between all the participants. So as participants, we are basically, when we talk about conventional insurance, we are saying it's the shareholders of the insurance company versus the policy holders. So it's a different relationship altogether. And if the shareholders, we squeeze them or pressure them to actually settle claims which are not supposed to be settled, we are actually taking away something from the shareholders. And to some extent that's fine because we paid a premium and we are effectively taking a business, sort of negotiating the claims with them. If you talk about takaful, we are basically, the takaful operator wouldn't perhaps mind settling the claim if we pressure them, but then it's at the cost of other participants, because the takaful fund does not belong to the shareholders at all. And that distinction is very, very important for us as consumers to understand. If we are to buy takaful products, then we should have the mindset that we are willing to accept the risks of takaful policies and not simply try and grab the largest amount of claim that we want for ourselves, because it's a participants fund. If you look at even on the underwriting, the rating side, we obviously pressure insurance companies to reduce the rates, right? For if you buy any insurance, you'll say, okay, 4%, you reduce it to 3.5, 3, and so on. Again, the same principle applies in a takaful contract. The risk premium, which is like the amount of risk that the pool would be bearing on behalf of all the participants, that is basically a constant. That is the important factor. So the takaful operator should actually charge an equitable, fair risk premium to all the clients, regardless of whether it's a large client or small client. For instance, if I have a car worth rupees 1 million, and another client who has, say, 50 cars for its employees comes to the takaful operator, the underlying risk for each car is the same. Let's say 3% per car, 3% of the risk amount. Now, because the client is larger, and if the takaful operator reduces the risk premium to, say, 2.5, then that's at the cost of individuals who are smaller risks, who are like coming as individuals. That principle apparently gets compromised within the takaful industry as well, and that's something that as implementation of takaful we need to be very careful about, because it's the participants fund that needs to be managed properly. So it's important that people, when they go out and like they want to switch to takaful, they should understand what the takaful rules say. Takaful rules actually define that the wakala fees that the takaful operator would charge would have to be defined in the takaful contract, right? So we say, okay, it's 30% is the takaful operator fees. Now, but if we take the example of car and we say 3% is the risk premium, so what should happen is 3% plus 30% as the takaful operator fee, that's what the gross premium should be, right? If another client comes and it says, okay, the gross rate is the same, then the takaful operator fee should reduce. That's a principle I'm trying to put in your minds, that if you're a large client, then negotiate the wakala fees. Don't negotiate the rate, because the rate is something that is that goes to the Takaful participants fund basically. It's the Wakala fees that should be reduced by the operator, so that they say, okay, if it's a large climb, I'm getting 100 cars together, then the Wakala fees should reduce, because the administrative expense would reduce of like handling 100 cars is less than of handling 1 car, because same documents are issued and so on. There are some inconsistency as far as surplus distribution part is concerned. Again, there are variations within Takaful companies internationally, and some Takaful operators would not distribute surplus, they will just keep setting aside reserves. So consistency in setting reserves is an important element, because if a Takaful operator like sets aside a large reserve for future contingencies, another operator actually distributes, then obviously what the consumer gets at the end of the day is gross premium minus the surplus that he gets, right? So his net cost is actually premium minus the surplus that he gets, and that's what determines the net cost. And it's not directly comparable when you look at conventional insurance contracts versus Takaful. If we say 4% is the conventional rate and 4% is the Takaful rate, then certainly the chances are that you're better off with the Takaful contract with this surplus element. Having said that, consumers should be prepared to even pay, say, 4.1% or 4.2%, given that at the end of the year there is a surplus which may arise. That's not a guaranteed surplus, but look at the concept that you're getting into. You're saying we want to participate in a fund, and if there is a surplus, we'll get it. So if we actually say, no, the rate has to be 4%, but I need to get surplus also, that doesn't seem to balance things as far as even the shareholders for a Takaful company are concerned. It just cannot match. I mean, it's technically not possible. So there would be, if a Takaful operator says, oh, it's 4%, same as conventional, but I'll give you 15-20% surplus also, either their profit objective is very low, or they're not making the right amount of money for the shareholders. Something has to give in, basically. That's the... at the moment, there's, within the Takaful rules, is one issue which consumers need to be aware of. Within surplus calculations, there's a clause which says it's the contributions minus claims and everything, minus the Wakala, the Takaful operator fee, minus it says commissions paid to the intermediaries, to the agents, which is a large part of insurance business, if you like. The insurance commissions could be like 15, 20, 25% commissions on certain lines of business. At the same time, the Takaful operator fee is supposed to include all management and marketing expenses. So there's something that somehow got left in the final scheme of things. So there is a, for instance, if a Takaful operator says, well, our operator fee is 15%, right? And says commissions will be charged directly to the Takaful fund, which is, say, another 20%. So the Wakala fee is actually 35%. But these are things which, over time, when 4 or 5 Takaful operators come in, the consumers would need to study the Takaful rules and see whether Wakala fees, how is it defined, whether it includes the commissions or it excludes the commissions. Those are things that consumers would actually need to be educated about, and that's the reason why I'm trying to raise these issues. Because if you want to switch to Takaful, please do study the Takaful rules, see what is required to be defined in the Takaful contracts, whether it's defined or not, and whether that's actually being implemented. Because it's important that any sort of issues that arise at this stage are reported to SECP and taken up at this stage, rather than the Takaful industry being looked at as another gimmick, if you like. Some comments on I think I've more or less covered the issues of what Captain Saab had said, basically. One issue that perhaps want to identify, someone actually asked what's the difference between Takaful and conventional. Perhaps wasn't coming out that clearly. So obviously, like Captain Saab said, the end objective is the same. We basically are saying, end of the day, we are protecting our assets or our lives and paying a contribution or premium for that. And at the end, there is a surplus element, which is the additional feature. In terms of the mechanism, conventional insurance, why is it objected to by Sharia scholars? One, because of the element of interest, because conventional insurance companies would invest in interest-bearing securities, riba-based activities, right? And the second more important one is the gharar, which is the uncertainty element. Now, uncertainty is like, okay, I pay a premium of 1,000, I might get a claim of 100,000, I might not get any claim, which means the fund goes to the shareholders. I mean, one would argue that obviously the same thing actually applies to a takaful contract also. Even when in takaful, you actually pay a contribution of 1,000, and you might get a 0 claim, or you might have a 100,000 claim. So why is takaful different then? The uncertainty element which Sharia scholars object to actually exists in takaful contracts as well, right? Just to clarify, that is basically Sharia scholars have said that gharar or uncertainty is allowed when it's a tabarru contract, when it's a donation contract, and not in commercial contracts where you actually, so why is it not a commercial contract and donation contract? Just because of this reason. To avoid uncertainty, if you term it as a tabarru contract, it becomes, uncertainty is actually allowed. Now, term it is a bit of a vague term where you say, okay, it seems like a labeling issue, but if you look at the mechanism that is being followed in a takaful company, it's like you're saying, well, you're donating to a waqf fund, and then that money is not yours. The rules of the waqf fund actually entitle you to certain benefits as per its rules. For instance, I mean, if you were to say a mosque is set up with a madrasa in it, and the rules of that says, okay, your children can actually study there. Right? So it gives you a benefit where you have set it up, but it gives you the right to actually benefit from it as well. It's something similar of that sort. I'm not, again, like a Sharia scholar as such to exactly precisely define this, but I think the idea is that uncertainty is allowed in tabarru contracts, and that's why the takaful contracts have been designed in a tabarru fashion, and that's why the need to set up a waqf fund. And one more objective of the waqf fund is to separate the participants and the takaful operator. So previously within the wakala model, the participants have a relation with the operator directly. But within this entity of waqf fund, you're saying the takaful operator is actually managing the waqf fund, and waqf fund is actually paying the takaful operator fees to the operator, and the participants are contributing, donating to the waqf fund, and the participants are benefiting from the waqf fund as per its rules. So there's basically a box in between, if you like, which is separating the operator and the participants basically. I think it's a good development since last year. Like we hopefully wish to see more companies, and once companies actually evolve, there will be more discussion around takaful concepts. And I probably need to wrap up now because, sorry. So. Okay. Okay. Yeah. As far as Pakistan is concerned, the takaful rules are on the SCCP website. It's sccp.gov.pk. Takaful rules are there on the website, and they define conditions like what should a takaful contract contain, the wakala fee should be defined, how surplus sharing should be. In fact, within surplus sharing, originally, before the committee finalized it, actually we defined how much contingency reserve can a takaful operator hold. To be very, very clear, but that somehow got taken away. So that's, anyway, thanks very much for all of you for coming, and inshallah next year we see all of you here, and hopefully with more speakers and different people on the table, so that there's some change. Thank you very much.
Now, may I request Mr. Abdur Rahim to present a memento to our speaker, Captain Jamil. The last vote of thanks in brief, because we all have to rush for. Thank you very much, Captain Jamil, for a very comprehensive and detailed presentation on takaful. Thank you very much, Abdur Rahim Saab, for coming over here. And you always feel pleasure and instantly say yes whenever I call these two gentlemen for any program over here at ICAP. And of course, our audience, thank you very much for being here with us, listening so patiently, especially in the holy month of Ramadan. And I would like to thank my staff of Southern Legion Committee and of course the staff of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan for all the assistance provided to us in conducting and organizing this program. And of course the members of our regional committee who provided me the guidance, and the media for the coverage. You can see this program very late night, maybe after 12:30 or early in the morning at 7 o'clock in Geo Business program, which is I think very difficult for you people to see, but people normally tell us कि उन्होंने देखा था जी program आया था. And at the end, I would like to say once again thank you very much for all of you. Please join us for the iftar, and which will be served on the ground floor. Thank you very much. Parking area में है. Yes, of